Okay, so we're on our last topic of the participant as an individual, and we're looking at training. Now, training is a factor that we can have quite a lot of control over as an individual. We can basically pick and choose how often we're going to train to some extent. Obviously, there's a big difference between being a professional who trains every single day for a number of hours and being an amateur athlete or sportsman, as you guys are, where you'll have set times throughout your normal week or normal routine where you can train. But in general, you can do extra and pick and choose how much of this you do. Okay, so obviously if we want to get better at a sport, we're going to have to train. Now, this word periodization, this basically means the different stages or different parts of a training program. And the reason why we have different stages or different parts of a training program, that's because we want to peak. And this word peak in a sporting context, it means when you are at your very best or when you are in your best form. Now, the elements of a general training periodization or a program would be these displayed here. So initially we would have our pre-season. Then we would go on to our peak season, and here we would have our post-season. Now our pre-season, this is where we're concentrating on building our levels of fitness. In our peak season, this is where we're looking at the main period of competition. And in our post-season, this is where we're looking mainly for rest and recovery. Right, so our levels of participation, this takes into account the competitive year of a sportsman. So we generally will have a pre-season, which is the period before our competition. We have our peak season, which is our period of competition, and then we have our post-season or off-season, which is the period after our competitive sport. So in our pre-season, this is where we're going to be building our basic levels of fitness, and a lot of work is done, especially for our games-related sportsmen, like most of you guys, our footballers and our rugby players. A lot of training on cardiovascular systems, building up our ability to run or to participate for a long period of time. We'll also be looking at, within this pre-season section, at sporting specific technique. So again, this will be specific to a footballer, a rugby player, or any different sport. Could be a sprinter working on their sprint technique. But mainly, it's these fitness levels that we're focusing on. In our peak season, now this is where we have our competition period. So that hard work and that intensive fitness training, that doesn't stop completely. We keep our fitness ticking over, but we've already done most of that pre-season training, most of that fitness training in this first part here. So really in our peak season, we're looking at skills, specific skills, fitness sessions that maintain our fitness that we've got to in our pre-season, and also our tactical or any kind of element of the game which is going to help us within our competition. Now post-season, this is a period of relaxation and recovery. So this is where you'll see athletes and sportsmen come away from the intensive training and the intensive level of competition, and this is for them to relax and to allow their body to recover. Now what we also would see within our professional sportsmen would be maintenance of general fitness. So they don't just go away and eat bad foods and slob around. They would maintain a base level of fitness. They would still eat healthily, because very, very quickly this whole process basically goes full circle. So as soon as they've had their recovery in their post-season, they're straight back to their pre-season here. And that's basically what the levels of participation mean in regards to a yearly period of training for a sportsman. Now there are two things related to training which are going to affect the quality of training that we can do, and also the amount of training. So the first thing is the amount of time we have. Now you guys, you spend an awful lot of time within school, so your ability to train full time is very difficult. But we know as sportsmen, if we want to get better at something, we have to train ourselves, and it has to be high quality training. So only our professionals can train full time. So they're training for maybe 5 hours a week. It might not just be sport specific stuff, but it might be something to increase their muscular ability. So it could be some sort of weight work or some sort of gym work alongside their sport specific stuff. Now, amateur sportsmen, like all of us guys, we have to fit our training into our everyday lives. So you guys spend, 6-7 hours at school. You then have to do homework, which is maybe 1 to 2 hours. You obviously then have to fit your training within that period. So it's relatively difficult for an amateur sportsman. The second thing, this is available funds. So the money that we've got to spend. Now, a sportsman who's a professional, their club's going to pay for their funds. A sportsman who's an amateur, they are going to have less funding. So their ability in regards to the facilities, the equipment and the specialist coaching that they're going to be able to access is going to be lower. So this is why you'll find a lot of amateur sportsmen, such as athletes, they will look for national lottery funding. That then can mean that they can spend that on facilities, they can spend that on equipment, and more importantly, they can spend it on specialist coaches to try and help them. Also, that funding means that they don't have to work full time, which means that they have access to this training, which we know if we have high quality training, our performance is going to get better. Our performance is going to improve. Okay, now you need to watch this screencast, and you just need to make sure that you come to tomorrow's lesson and have a base knowledge of what we're doing, and then we'll get cracking on the training section, and that will be the last part of the participant as an individual.